Daniel sat on the edge of the hill, watching the twin suns dip below the mountains. The alien world of Velmara was peaceful, quiet, and warm. He liked it here, away from Earth's noise and busy life. But he never expected to be answering this kind of question. Behind him, he heard light footsteps crunch over the glowing grass. He didn't turn, he already knew who it was. "Sela," he said with a soft smile. "You're back early." The alien girl sat beside him, her large, silver eyes full of wonder. She was from a species called the Velmaria race, known for their calm hearts and quiet minds. Sela was young by her people's standards, maybe 19 in human years. She had always been curious about humans, especially Daniel. He was the only human on this side of the planet, and the only one she trusted. Today, she looked different, her head tilted a little more, her voice quieter than usual. "Daniel," she said gently, "I want to ask something important." He looked at her, surprised by her serious tone. "Sure, go ahead." She looked down, her fingers brushing the glowing grass nervously. "How do humans choose their mates?" Daniel blinked, unsure he heard right. Their mates," he repeated. She nodded, not smiling, not joking. "I've studied your books," she said. "I've read your files and watched your shows. But I don't feel like I understand." Her voice softened even more. "When do humans know when it is time to mate?" Tino's mouth went dry. This was not the kind of question he thought he'd be answering tonight, or ever. He looked at her, confused but careful. "Why do you want to know?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. "I need to understand," she said simply. "Your kind connects differently than mine. We bond through resonance, energy, emotion, but humans, it seems more physical, more personal. I don't want to misunderstand something." He cleared his throat, buying time. "Well, it's not just physical for us," he said slowly. "There's emotion too, and trust, and love. We don't just choose someone to mate with, we choose someone to stay with." Sela's eyes shimmered under the second sun's light. Her blue skin reflected soft shades of violet as she leaned slightly closer. "So how do you know when to start?" she asked. Her voice was so sincere, so innocent, it made Daniel's heart skip. He looked away, flustered. "Well, sometimes it just happens," he said. "Sometimes it starts with a feeling, like wanting to be close to someone, wanting to protect them. Then it grows stronger, and eventually, you share your heart and your body." Sela tilted her head, studying him. "Does that mean you would protect me?" Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't expected that. I mean, of course," he said quickly. "You're my friend, but not all friends, mate," she said plainly, so there must be more. He couldn't help but laugh nervously. Yeah, there's more," he said. "There's something deeper, a connection. Something you can't always explain." Sela grew quiet again, watching the sky turn from gold to purple. Then she whispered, "I think I felt something strange lately." Daniel turned toward her slowly. Her fingers brushed his arm lightly. "When I'm near you, my resonance shifts," she said. "My pulse grows faster. My people say that only happens when a bond is forming." His heart thudded, and for once, he didn't have words. He just stared at her as she looked down, shy and glowing with something new. "I wanted to ask you, because I think you're the one I feel it with," she said softly. "Is this normal for humans too?" Daniel's mind was racing. No manual, no protocol had prepared him for this moment. He had come to Velmara to observe and learn not to fall into something so delicate, so unexpected. Yet here she was, sitting beside him, asking the most innocent and most dangerous question at once. The wind passed gently over them, carrying the scent of alien flowers. Daniel finally found his voice. "Sela," he said gently, "I think we both have a lot to learn." She smiled then, small and beautiful, her eyes glowing faintly. "I would like to learn with you," she whispered, and in that quiet, alien sunset, Daniel realized the question that made him freeze might just be the beginning of something that would melt them both. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, his mind spinning with Ciola's words. She had asked him about mating. But it wasn't just a question, it was real for her. He had seen it in her eyes, heard it in her voice, and felt it in that gentle touch. And now he had to make a choice. The next morning, he stepped outside the research station and found her waiting near the garden. She stood still like a statue, her long silver hair catching the sunlight. Her hands were folded, her eyes full of hope. "Good morning," she said softly. "Did you think about my question?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I did," he replied, "and I think maybe I didn't explain things very well." She looked curious, tilting her head. "Then show me," she said. "Show me how humans connect." He smiled gently. "All right then," he said. "We'll start with something small." He reached out and held her hand. Just that. No words, no sudden moves, just quiet. "Human touch," Ciola gasped softly, her skin lighting up. Where his fingers touched hers, "It's warm," she whispered. "I didn't know warmth could feel like safety." They spent the day walking through the alien woods near the station. Daniel shared little things like skipping stones, pointing at birds, and telling stories from Earth. He even gave her a small wrapped candy, and she giggled when it stuck to her teeth. "That's sugar," he said, laughing. "It makes humans happy." She blinked, surprised. "Then I think I love sugar," she said seriously. But it wasn't the candy that made her heart flutter. It was the way he looked at her when she smiled. The way he noticed when she shivered and offered his jacket. The way he listened without judgment, without fear. Later that evening, Daniel invited her to watch an old Earth movie. They sat on the couch in the quiet room, the screen flickering softly. It was a simple romance to people falling in love despite everything. Ciola didn't blink the entire time near the end. When the couple on screen kissed in the rain, Ciola suddenly wiped her cheek. "Surprised, there's water on my face," she said. Daniel looked at her and smiled gently. "That's a tear," he said. "It means your heart is feeling something deep." She turned to him, eyes wide. "I didn't know my heart could do that." He nodded. "It's part of being close to someone," he said. Even humans forget how powerful it can be. For a moment, they just sat in silence, the air between them heavy but calm. Then she leaned toward him slightly, her voice like a whisper in the dark. "I think I want to feel more of this." Daniel didn't move. "What do you mean?" "I want to understand this thing humans call love," she said, "not from books or pictures, but from you. I want to know what it means to matter to someone." His heart raced again, just like the night before, but this time he didn't freeze. He gently took her hand again, and she didn't pull away. "Then we'll go slow," he said. "One step at a time." She smiled, and it wasn't like before. It was softer, fuller, like something had awakened inside her. "I trust you," she whispered. "I've never said that to anyone before." Later, when she left for the night, Daniel sat alone, thinking hard. She was learning, feeling, growing, and so was he. But he also knew something dangerous was happening back in her village. Far across the glowing fields, others had started to notice. One of the elder minds, a guardian of their traditions, sensed her resonance shifting. "This is not normal," he said, his voice echoing in the sacred chamber. "She is bonding with something outside. Could it be the human?" Another elder asked. "No alien has ever reached this state with an outsider." "We must observe," the first one said. "If she continues, she may cross the point of no return." The stars above Velmara shone bright that night. Ciola stood near her window, hand on her chest. She could feel her pulse faster than usual. Louder, warmer. She didn't know where this would go. but she knew one thing. Whatever this human called love, she wanted to follow it, even if it led her to something unknown. The air was warm that evening, filled with soft music from the glowing wind trees. Daniel sat near the garden wall, watching the stars blink into the sky. He heard a quiet sound behind him, light, almost hesitant. He didn't need to turn too. "No, it was her, Sela," he said softly. "You're getting good at sneaking up on me." She stepped forward, her bare feet barely touching the ground. "I wasn't trying to sneak," she replied. "I was just nervous." Daniel turned and smiled. "You? Nervous?" he teased gently. "You faced down a wild sand beast last week." She looked down, a slight shimmer touching her cheeks. "This is different," she whispered. "I'm not afraid of danger. I'm afraid of making a mistake." Daniel's smile faded just a little. He could feel her energy shifting, more open, more emotional than before. He nodded to the bench beside him, and she sat down, leaving only a small space between them. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. Sela's fingers twitched, as if they wanted to move but weren't sure where to go. Finally, she turned her face toward him. "May I try something?" she asked. Daniel blinked, unsure. "Sure," he said slowly. "What is it?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she gently reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and pressed her hand over his heart, right where it beat steady under his shirt. The moment her hand touched him, something happened. A pulse of warmth ran through both of them like a heartbeat made of light. Daniel gasped quietly, feeling a soft tingle all across his chest. Sela's eyes widened in awe, glowing faintly with a color he hadn't seen before. "I felt it," she whispered. "Your heartbeat?" Daniel covered her hand gently with his own. "Yes," he said softly. "That's me." She looked up into his eyes. "It's strong," she said, "and warm. It feels like a signal. Like it's calling to mine." He didn't know what to say. He only knew that this moment, this quiet, small touch, felt bigger than anything before. Suddenly, her body trembled. Not in fear, but in resonance. A gentle light began to pulse beneath her skin. Her hair lifted slightly, as if caught in wind that wasn't there. She gasped, clutched his shirt, and pressed her forehead to his shoulder. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said quickly. "I only wanted to feel closer. But I think I started the resonance." Daniel froze. "Resonance?" he asked. "What does that mean?" She looked up, her breath shaky, her eyes shimmering like crystal water. "In my people," she said, "when we feel a soul that matches ours, the bond begins. We call it the first touch. It's rare, sacred, and almost impossible with other species." Daniel swallowed hard. "And now? It's happening with me." She nodded slowly. "I think so." Daniel looked at her glowing form. Her face wasn't just beautiful now, was alive with emotion, and he realized something else. This wasn't just about learning anymore. This wasn't just curiosity. This was real, but he also knew what it might mean for her. "What will your people say?" he asked carefully. "They may not like this." She pulled back a little, but didn't let go of his hand. "They won't understand," she said, "but I don't want to hide from what I feel. I want to see this through. Even if it's forbidden." Daniel took a deep breath. He had signed up to study cultures, languages, histories, not to become part of a sacred bond. But now, he was already deep in it. And strangely, he didn't want to escape. He gently cupped her face. Her skin buzzed softly under his palm, like touching sunlight. "If this is happening," he said, "then we'll face it together." Sela smiled, shaky, emotional smile, and leaned into his touch. "I didn't expect this," she whispered. "Not from a human, but I'm glad it's you, above them." The sky glowed with shooting stars, another rare Velmaron event. To the watchers above, it might have seemed like a celebration. But down below, The real spark had already begun. 2 hearts, 2 species, 1 bond that wasn't supposed to exist, far across the valley, inside the sacred temple of the elders. Something stirred. A crystal orb that had remained silent for centuries suddenly lit up. The guardian of bonds stepped forward, alarmed, resonance. With a human. He said in disbelief that hasn't happened since the lost generation. Another elder stepped beside him. Prepare the trial, he said grimly. We must test if this connection is real. Destroy it before it spreads. Back in the garden, Sela and Daniel sat close, unaware of the coming storm, but in their silence, they both felt something neither could deny. Something deeper than science, stronger than fear. They had touched each other's hearts. And now, nothing would be the same. The next morning. The peaceful air of Elmara was gone. Daniel woke to the sound of heavy footsteps outside the station. When he stepped out, he saw 3 tall Velmoran guardians waiting for him, their armor glowing faintly in the sunlight. One of them spoke in a voice that carried no warmth. You will come with us. Daniel glanced around. What's going on? He asked, but the guardian's eyes didn't soften. The elders have summoned you, and the girl. Sela was already there, her hands clasped tightly, her head lowered. She didn't look afraid, but she didn't look calm either. Daniel, she said softly. They know. He understood immediately. The first touch, the resonance. It hadn't gone unnoticed. The bond between them had reached the ears of the most powerful beings on this planet. And they were not pleased. The guardians escorted them through the glowing fields to the sacred city. Valmara's capital was a maze of crystal spires and floating bridges, all shimmering under the twin suns. Daniel had been there once before as a guest. This time, it felt more like a prisoner's walk. They entered the hall of the elders, a vast chamber with walls that pulsed with soft light at the far end. A semicircle of alien figures sat in tall chairs, their eyes fixed on the 2 of them. Sela bowed deeply, but Daniel just stood straight, unsure what to do. The central elder leaned forward. You know why you are here, she said to Sela. Her voice calm but sharp. You have initiated resonance. With an outsider, Sela's voice was steady. Yes, she said. It happened naturally. Nothing about this is natural. Another elder said, his tone like ice. Such a bond has not been seen in hundreds of years. It is dangerous. It could disrupt the balance of our people. Daniel stepped forward. Wait, he said firmly. We didn't plan this. We were just learning about each other. The first elder's eyes narrowed. And yet the resonance began, she said, which means there is compatibility of the soul. This is not a small thing. Human Sela lifted her head. Then, let us prove it, she said. The elders exchanged glances. Daniel turned to her, confused. Sela, what are you doing? He whispered. They will not believe us unless we face the trial, she said quietly. The trial of the heart. The elders finally nodded. Very well, said the central voice. You will enter the temple of connection at first light. If your bond is true, it will survive the trial. If it is false, it will be broken, and you will never see each other again. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Sela sat beside him on the small balcony of the guest quarters, her eyes fixed on the stars. What exactly is this trial? Ali asked. She didn't look at him. It's not about strength, she said. It's about truth. The temple will search our hearts, every memory, every feeling, if we hide anything. If our emotions are not the same, the bond will shatter. Daniel rubbed his face. That sounds terrifying. Sela finally turned to him, her expression soft. It is, she admitted. But I trust us. He looked at her in the pale moonlight. The calm determination in her voice made something inside him settle. He reached out and took her hand. We'll face it together, he said. She squeezed his hand back. always, at dawn. The guardians led them to the Temple of Connection. It was a massive dome of crystal and silver, with no doors, only a shimmering wall of light. As they stepped through, Daniel felt a rush of warmth, like walking into sunlight after rain. Inside, the air shimmered, and a large mirror stood in the center. Its surface was liquid, reflecting not their faces, but flashes of memories, both his and hers. "This is the mirror of truth," said a guardian who stood inside with them. "You must stand before it. Speak your truths, and see if they match." Daniel's heart pounded as he stepped forward. He began speaking not rehearsed words, but what came from deep inside. "I've been alone for most of my life," he said slowly. "Even when I was surrounded by people, I felt unseen. When I met you, Sila, something changed. I wanted to be better. Not just for me, but for you." The mirror rippled, showing scenes of him laughing with her, walking in the fields, sharing candy. Sila stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "I have never felt what I feel with you," she said. "My people taught me that bonds were rare and dangerous, but they never told me they could be beautiful. You are in my thoughts, even when you are far. You are in my dreams, even when I sleep." The mirror pulsed brighter, the images of their memories merging into one. Then, a deep hum filled the chamber. The guardian's eyes widened. "It's happening," he said quietly. A sudden crack ran through the mirror's surface, not a sign of breaking and failure, but the ancient signal of a completed bond. The room filled with soft golden light, wrapping around them both. Daniel looked at Sila, and she at him. Neither spoke, because they didn't have to. The trial was over, and they had passed. The chamber was silent. The mirror stood cracked, glowing softly like it was breathing. Golden lights swirled around Daniel and Sila as if the room itself had accepted them. But beyond the temple walls, the elders waited, and not all of them were ready to believe. Daniel felt like the world had slowed down. He reached for Sila's hand and found it already reaching for his. Their fingers met, and a soft wave of warmth passed between them. The bond was still there, stronger than ever. They had passed the trial of the heart. But the hardest part wasn't over yet. A deep tone echoed through the chamber. It was the temple's way of saying, "The trial has ended." The golden glow faded, and the cracked mirror slowly reformed, leaving only a glowing line where the bond had been sealed. The guardian stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He placed one hand on the mirror's surface, then turned to face them. "The trial is complete," he said slowly. "The mirror has accepted your truth. The bond is genuine." Daniel looked at Sila, hope rising in his chest, but the guardian raised a hand. "However," he said, "the final decision belongs to the Council of Elders." Sila's breath caught. "You mean they could still break us apart?" The guardian didn't answer. He simply turned and walked through the exit, leaving a trail of soft light behind him. The journey back to the capital felt heavier. Daniel and Sila sat in the silent transport, watching the stars drift past the window. No words were spoken, but their hands remained locked together. Neither one wanted to let go. Not now. Not after everything they'd been through. When they arrived, the council chamber was already full. The elders sat in their tall, glowing seats. The entire temple court stood in silent attention. But something was different this time. The air wasn't cold anymore. It was tense, filled with whispers, curiosity, and quiet rebellion. The trial had been watched through the temple's energy stream. Many younger Velmarans had seen it, and now they looked at the human not with fear, but with awe. One elder, tall and fierce-eyed, stood and spoke. "The bond is real." "Yes," he said. "But real does not mean right. Our traditions say the resonance must be kept within our kind. It protects us, preserves our way." Another elder stood up, her voice softer. But if the bond was truly dangerous, would the mirror have accepted it? Would the trial have been passed? Voices murmured around the chamber. Daniel took a step forward, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I didn't come here to change your culture," he said. "I came to learn, to help. I never expected to find her, but I did." He turned to Sela, then back to the council. "She is not just an alien to me," he said. "She is someone who made me feel seen, heard, and understood. She helped me find a part of myself I didn't know was missing." The room was silent again. Then, an unexpected voice called out from the crowd, young, nervous, but strong. "If the bond is love, why should we fear it?" All eyes turned to the speaker, a Velmaron youth standing near the back. More voices began to rise, others who had seen the trial, who had felt something shift in the air. The council began to stir. Unsure, divided, the elders argued quietly among themselves. Then the eldest of them, all an ancient Velmaran, whose skin shimmered like mist, stood up. Her voice was old, but filled with wisdom. "I remember the last time this happened," she said. "It was long ago, in the time of stars before war. The bond failed. Because fear won, shall we make that mistake again?" The chamber was silent, waiting. The elder looked at Daniel, then at Sela. "I see no fear in them," she said. "I see trust, honesty, and a choice made not by logic, but by the heart." She turned to the council, her voice rising. "Let them be what we could not. Let this be the beginning of something new." One by one, the council members slowly nodded. And with that, the decision was made. Later that evening, Daniel and Sela stood alone in the quiet crystal garden. The stars reflected in the glass pool, and their reflections shimmered beside each other like one being. Sela looked at him, her voice softer than a whisper. "I thought they would tear us apart." Daniel smiled, pulling her close. "But they didn't," he said. "You gave them something to believe in." She touched her chest gently. "I can still feel your heart," she whispered. "It echoes inside me." Daniel looked up at the stars, then back at her. "So, what now?" She smiled, finally free of fear. "Now," she said, "we walk forward together." And somewhere far above them, beyond the sky, the sacred mirror that had once judged them now glowed softly in silence. Not as a warning, but as a witness to a love that no law could break. Asterisk, the stars above Velmara glowed quietly, but inside Siala's heart, a storm of feelings stirred. She had passed the trial. Her people had accepted the bond, and Daniel still held her hand, yet her chest felt tight. Like something new was growing inside her, something she didn't fully understand yet. Daniel walked beside her in silence as they returned to the outer gardens. It was a quiet space where only wind, grass, and the songs of glowing flowers remained. Neither of them spoke at first, letting the silence wrap around them like a warm blanket. But it wasn't an awkward silence. It was the kind that spoke louder than words. Finally, Sela turned to him, her voice low. "I can feel everything now," she said. "Not just you. Not just your heartbeat or emotions." Daniel looked at her carefully. "What do you feel?" She paused, as if listening inward. "Hope," she whispered. "Worry too, and something warm. Something that surrounds me, even when we're apart." Daniel smiled softly. "I guess that's what love feels like for humans," he said. "You carry it even when no one's looking." She nodded slowly. "In my people, resonance was always a private thing. But this is something we both carry, not just inside our bodies, but around us." Daniel took her hand again and led her to the edge of the glowing pool. The water shimmered, reflecting two figures, human and alien but connected. "We're different," he said quietly. "Different minds, different worlds, but somehow it fits." Sela tilted her head as if hearing something far away. "My people say that true bonds echo across generations," she said. "That if a bond is strong enough, it becomes a story, Daniel chuckled. So, we're a story now. She smiled. Maybe, she said. Or maybe we're the beginning of a new one. Just then, a small group of young Velmarans approached the garden. They stood at a respectful distance, unsure, curious, and a little afraid. One of the mug girl with soft, glowing eyes stepped forward. Is it true? She asked. You bonded with him? With a human? Sela didn't flinch. She stood tall, her voice calm. Yes, she said. I did. The young girl looked at Daniel, then back at Sela. Was it painful? Sela shook her head. No, she said. It was freeing. The others slowly moved closer, no longer afraid. They began asking questions: what he felt like, what love meant to him, why he stayed. Daniel answered them with honesty, not trying to impress, just sharing from his heart, and with each answer, the invisible wall between them started to fade. One young Velmaran boy stepped forward last. He looked unsure, but his eyes were full of something rare: hope. If we learn from each other, he asked, can we bond to someday? Sela and Daniel exchanged a glance. Daniel bent down slightly, meeting the boy's gaze. Maybe, he said with a gentle smile, but it starts with respect. And listening, Sela added, even when you don't understand. The boy nodded, as if he understood something much bigger than just the words. Then the group left, their eyes wide, their minds racing. Sela sat back down, her face softer now. I never thought they'd listen. You gave them something real to see, Daniel said. They don't fear the unknown anymore. They want to know it. As night grew deeper, Daniel looked up at the moons above. I've always felt like I didn't belong anywhere, he said quietly. But somehow, here with you it feels like I finally do. Sela reached out, placing her hand once again over his heart. This time, her fingers glowed gently, not because of surprise, but because of comfort. You do belong, she said. You belong with me. Just then, a soft chime rang through the garden. A messenger arrived from the council, holding a silver scroll. Daniel took it, unrolling the delicate fabric as he read. His eyes widened slightly. What is it? Sela asked. He turned to her. Amazed, they want us to speak tomorrow, he said. Not just to the elders, but to the entire planet. They want us to share our story. Sela's eyes sparkled. To teach others. She asked. He nodded. To help them understand that love isn't bound by species or rules. It's bound by truth. She stood up, her presence full of quiet strength. Then we will speak, she said. And we won't hide anymore. As they walked back together, the stars above them seemed to shine brighter. Not because of what had changed around them, but because of what had changed within them. They weren't just human and alien anymore. They were the symbol of something new, something the universe had waited a long time to see. A bond built not by blood, not by law, but by understanding. And from that understanding, a future would grow. Together, hand in hand, they walked into it. The world of Velmara had never seen a night like this. The twin moons glowed together, and the stars above shimmered like falling glass. Lights floated gently through the sky lanterns, released from every village, every city, each one carried by someone who had watched the trial, listened to the message, and now believed in the bond between a human and an alien. Daniel stood on the hill just outside the temple. He was dressed in ceremonial robes gifted by the council, soft, glowing cloth that responded to his heartbeat. He kept pulling at the sleeves, still not used to being the center of attention. Sela stood beside him, her own robes made of living silk that shimmered with every step she took. She looked calm, but Daniel could feel the pulse in her fingers as she held his hand. Are you ready? She asked gently. Daniel took a breath and looked at her. I don't know, he said, but I'm not afraid. That's enough, she whispered. Being unafraid means your heart is open. The great platform rose slowly from the ground. Lifting them into the air before thousands of Velmaran citizens, they stood silent, glowing with quiet respect, waiting not for a performance, but for truth. Daniel's voice trembled at first as he spoke. "I came here as a guest," he said. "I thought I was here to study, to observe. But something happened I didn't expect. I found someone who made me feel seen." He turned to Ciala, who now stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. "I had always believed that resonance was a path only walked by Velmarans," she said, "but Daniel showed me something else. He showed me that hearts can speak across language, across species, across fear." Murmurs spread through the crowd, gentle, thoughtful, full of wonder. Daniel looked at her, then back. "To the people, we didn't plan this," he said, "but we chose it. And love, no matter where it begins, is always a choice." A wave of light passed through the crowd, thousands of Velmarans, lifting their glowing hands in support. Some had tears in their eyes. Some simply closed their eyes and listened to the energy flowing around them. In that moment, no one saw Daniel as a human or Ciala as an alien. They saw them as two souls bonded, brave, and full of hope. Later that night, long after the speech was over, after the handshakes, the questions, and the hundreds of smiling faces, Daniel and Ciala walked alone into the quiet forest beyond the temple walls. They came to a small hill where the grass hummed softly beneath their feet. Ciala spread out a blanket made from glowing threads. They sat down together. The sky above, full of dancing stars. Daniel lay back, his hands behind his head. He looked up and smiled. "This is the first time I felt like I don't have to prove anything." "You don't," Ciala said, lying beside him. "You're already part of our story." She rested her head on his shoulder, her tail gently wrapping around his leg. Without a word, Daniel glanced down at her with a soft laugh. "Is that a Velmaran thing?" he asked. She nodded without lifting her head. "It means comfort," she said, "and trust." He moved his hand to hers, fingers intertwining. Gently, the bond still pulsed between them, soft, warm, like music without sound. "Do you think we'll always feel this?" he asked. Ciala looked at the sky. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But I know I want to." They lay in silence for a while. The wind rustled the glowing trees, and a soft mist drifted across the hilltop. Daniel turned his head too. "Look at her." Her eyes were half closed, glowing gently in the dark. "You're not afraid anymore." He whispered. "No," she replied. "Because you stayed," Daniel smiled, brushing a loose strand of her silver hair behind her ear. He didn't speak after that. There was nothing left to explain, nothing left to ask. Only the quiet promise of tomorrow. For Ciala, love was no longer just a word from a human story. It was a heartbeat in the dark, a hand reaching across stars. It was him, lying beside her, breathing with her under a sky that no longer separated their worlds. For Daniel, this wasn't just a mission anymore. He hadn't just discovered a new culture or language, he had discovered a reason to stay. A home not made of walls, but of trust, laughter, and someone who chose him. And as they drifted towards sleep under the open sky, the stars above Velmara kept watch, carrying their bond through time, through stories, through generations to come, because the night they shared wasn't just the end of a journey. 'Twas the beginning of a new kind of history. One where a curious question became a connection, and that connection became something even the stars could not ignore.